Alrighty, hello again everyone. Welcome back to another Bio Boost, and this one is hopefully going to be a nice quick one where I think I can distill everything you need to know about the light dependent and light independent phases in one video. Okay, so obviously we know the locations of these. We know that the light dependent phase, so the one that needs light, is going to be in our thylakoid membrane. Okay, why it's in the thylakoid membrane is that is where chlorophyll is found. Okay, and remember, chlorophyll is the pigment that captures sunlight, so therefore the light dependent phase, the one that needs light, is going to be in the thylakoid. Okay, our light independent phase, so the one that we don't need light for, is going to happen in the stroma of the chloroplast. Okay, so I haven't written that down, but that's assumed knowledge so far. Now, what I've done is I've color coded already the inputs and the outputs of photosynthesis with where they occur in these two phases. And you'll notice, very helpfully, that each of these phases has one input and one output that are in that main photosynthesis pathway. Okay, so I've changed the order that we usually write them in, the CO2 plus water plus glucose and oxygen, and change them around so they're in the order that we're going to see them. Okay, and you'll notice with our inputs and outputs of our carriers, our loaded and unloaded coenzymes, that that's really easy as well. Okay, so what happens in the light dependent phase? Okay, so essentially in a nutshell, what we're doing here is splitting up water and making oxygen and loading our coenzymes. Okay, so remember, for every anabolic reaction we do, where we build something, we have to break something to get energy. Okay, and what are we building in this phase? Well, really, we're building coenzymes. We're building the loaded coenzymes so that we can use that energy in the next phase to build our glucose, which is obviously a very energy intensive process. So let's have a look. What happens? Our sunlight comes in and hits these photosystems, okay? And essentially where it goes is it excites these electrons, okay? It excites the electrons, which then breaks water into our oxygen and our hydrogen ions, and then those electrons move along the electron transport chain, okay? They're really excited, so they've got all this energy, and they're going to then, okay, so this is happening here. So our water's been split into our oxygen and hydrogen ions. So we've got hydrogen ions forming in this thylakoid space. We have those electrons moving down the electron transport chain, where they're going to activate this proton pump. Remember, our hydrogen ions are protons. So our hydrogen ions are going to get pumped in. We then go to our next photosystem, where, again, that excitement from those electrons will enable us to use that energy to build NADPH from NADP. So here we have NADPH. Okay, I'll just get up my little highlighter. NADP plus NADPH. That's happening here. Okay, we've already split up our water and our oxygen, so that's already happened. And then finally, with this massive increase in hydrogen ions below, we get our hydrogen ions wanting to passively diffuse out of the thylakoid. So they go through this, basically, this channel protein. Okay, but this is part of ATP synthase, and like the name suggests, it synthesizes ATP. So what it does is it joins ADP and a free phosphate to make ATP. Okay, and that's where we get our final inputs and outputs. Okay, so that's all you need to know. You don't need to know the names of any of these things. You just have to know that basic process. Okay, now we've got all our inputs and outputs, and now we can look at the next phase. Okay, so now we're entering the stroma. Now, we have sorted out our H2O. Our oxygen has now left our plant. So now all we have is our carbon dioxide to go into our reaction, because remember it's an input, and our glucose that we're going to create in the reaction. Okay, notice that the only other two inputs for this phase are coming directly out of the last phase. Okay, so the NADPH and the ATP we just produced are so that we can build glucose, because that is a big process. So our carbon gets fixed in Rubisco, that enzyme that basically fixes carbon, which we talk a lot more about with photorespiration and our C4 and CAM plants. And essentially all you need to know about this process is that it creates a simple sugar, this 3-carbon atom, that then eventually is used to make glucose. Okay, and then that regenerates, which is why it's a cycle, a Calvin cycle. Okay, notice that we've used up our ATP and our NADPH, okay, our inputs, which are then used for their energy so that we can create our glucose in the end. Okay, then simply those, the NADP plus and the ADP, go back to all the way to the start, where they are then loaded up again and used for another photosynthetic reaction. So all in all, we have covered all the inputs and all the outputs of photosynthesis, looking at both of our types of stages, our light-dependent and our light-independent, and hopefully that simplifies things for you. Okay, it's a lot easier, I think, than you may think. And if you read the study design FAQs, you'll figure out that they actually don't expect too much with this. Okay, what you've got to be able to do is adapt your knowledge and apply it to different situations. So if it said, you know, what are the inputs and outputs of these things, then yeah, you can rote learn that. But if it said you're getting a buildup of O2 and no glucose is being formed, then you may work out that, let's say, the light dependent phase is working well, but the light independent phase is not working well. So maybe that's where we're getting photorespiration or something. Okay, so hopefully you can use this video and really nail down on the absolute key points in photosynthesis, and hopefully that's been helpful for you. So have a great weekend, great holidays, and hopefully you can find this video helpful throughout the year. Okay, have a fantastic day whenever you're watching this, and stay informed. Have a lovely one.